Oh, here we
Hello
are.
and welcome to the Digital Writers Festival. This is the panel on fan fiction. To begin, I would like to acknowledge the First Nations, first storytellers and traditional owners of this land, the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nations and the Ngunnawal people here in Canberra. I pay my respects to their elders past, present and emerging, and to the elders of the lands of this broadcast reaches. Harry Potter, Supernatural, Star Wars. We all grew up with our fictional worlds and found ourselves through them. But what do you do when you can't see yourself represented in popular narratives? Create your own. Fan fiction can provide a way to rewrite the narrative and create space for new and diverse voices, characters and stories. Now, we're here today to discuss the potential fan fiction has to influence the media we consume. I have Ella Donald and Cubby Mako here with me today for this Digital Writers Festival panel discussing representation in fan fiction. I'm Nalini Haynes. I'm a research candidate at the University of Canberra studying representations of albinism. I am an albino, and no, I don't look it. And for the past 7 years, I've also run Dark Magazine, an online zine, publishing reviews, interviews, cosplay photos, and news relating to pop culture. Ella is a freelance journalist and critic from Brisbane, who's fascinated by the shrinking divide between technology and culture. She's an avid reader of fan fiction across heaps of fandoms, Glee, Orphan Black, and Carol, to name a few, which was pivotal in her teenage years when coming to terms with her sexuality. She's also interested in the transformative power of online communities. Hello, Ella.
Hi, nice to meet you all, and thanks to everyone for tuning in.
Would you like to add anything to your introduction?
No, I think you pretty much summed it up pretty well.
And Cubby, who's here with us cosplaying today, has a degree in psychology. She's focusing on writing as a member of West Writers Group, and she's an art student at Footscray Community Arts Centre. She's been published in literary magazines. She's also a Voltron fangirl, a Keith and a shipper, and a fan fiction and fan art curator. Welcome, Cubby.
Hello from Melbourne. I'd like just like to acknowledge that I'm broadcasting from the western suburbs of Melbourne, or NARM, on the unceded lands of the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation. The first peoples were the first storytellers as well, who are the traditional owners where we live. Pay my respects to their elders, present, past, and emerging, and all those who are watching live or watching us here at Digital Writers Festival. Welcome, everyone. Hello. I'm cosplaying Allura, which is the new version of the princess in Voltron, and she's a person of color, a woman of color. She's very new, so there you go. Something fun on a Friday afternoon.
Can you please explain to those of us who don't know what the word shipper means in this context?
Okay, shipping means that you make or pair in a story or of the inside a fandom or the fan fiction. So in my case, I ship two key characters of Voltron from the 80s version, whose name is Keith, and the other one is Allura, who used to be a blonde, blue-eyed princess, but this latest reincarnation they turned her into a woman of color, which is very fascinating, and she's quite a warrior. And I've yet to write the fan fiction for her, but all I've written are from the very special edition of Voltron, which is the Australian. This is only available in Australia, the DVD version, which is in back in, I think, 2012. So
Wow.
most of the fan fiction I wrote, yeah, it's from this version. And it's only in Australia.
Cool.
Yeah, they don't have other DVD in other countries, other worlds, other countries. So it's fantastic. So there you go.
That's amazing. Cubby, in romance, characters tend to be given the magic cure-all to their disability. Why do you think that is?
You know, even in uh, it's probably the ableism in society. They don't accept, you know, a happy that people with disabilities can have happy endings. But in the fan fiction I wrote, which is called um, sorry, I forgot the title of the latest version I wrote. But what I did, I made them with a disability, but in the end, they they still had their disability and still had their happy ending. So there's much ableism out there. So I write and as yeah, as even though it's het, but it's the woman is very strong, very a strong character, and also has very good attributes in terms of her character.
That's awesome. Ella, do you have something to add to that?
Oh, I was going to say, I feel like the idea of giving the magic cure-all is, I think it's because, I guess there's a fantasy element to it. Do you mean in like the original text they get the magic cure-all?
Well, in the original and in some fanfic.
Okay. Yeah, I was going to say, I'm able-bodied myself, so I can't really speak from experience on this one. But I mean, I think that, yeah, I think it is a level of fantasy, happy ending, wishful thinking type of stuff. But at the same time, I don't think maybe that is true to life or true of people's experiences. In real life, there is no thing like that. And while a level of I guess fantasy can be very helpful and very, just speaking from my own experiences, very helpful and very, you know, transformative, that it may not be the most beneficial thing, because at the end of the day, there's very few instances where you can get that magic cure-all in real life. And what you need more than anything is support through your own struggles, which I feel like is there. It is more beneficial to, yeah.
Yes,
to
I would agree with you. And Cubby, do you think, from my perspective, I mean, obviously I'm racially white as well as having albinism, but I would actually suggest that giving someone a cure-all at the end of a story, curing their disability, is almost like saying to you as a woman of color, I'm going to give you a happy ending by turning you into a woman, of a white woman. So by changing part of your, well, a huge part of your identity. Would you have anything to say to that?
I haven't crossed that kind of fan fiction yet, because actually there was a much turmoil when the Princess Allura was changed to a woman of color from a blonde princess. So the original fans who ship Allura with other characters was not really accepting at the beginning, until they realized we're halfway now of the series actually on Netflix. It's up to 7 to 8 episodes, so we're halfway there. And the story arc, the amazing storytelling that they do by the same team that made Korra the Legend of Korra. So it's really fascinating how they develop these characters in a writer's point of view. But yeah, I've yet to encounter something in fan fiction realm where a princess is changed from a different race from another. But yeah, it's fascinating how you could change, how you could use fan fiction to write anything. Actually, make it fun, make it all the possibilities is endless when you're in fan fiction.
I love the fact that you've obviously really identified with Allura, and you love the fact that you can now identify with her more strongly because she's like you.
Yes, and even though in the 80s, where back then we're not allowed to watch robots cartoons because it's robot, they're for boys. But I love the robot thing. So when I told my parents back then, like, Mom, there's a princess there, so surely you let me watch the cartoons. And yeah, so that's how it all started back then. So even though the princess was blonde and I was a person of color, it was fun because it was kind of a breakthrough back then, because a strong princess, a woman, a girl is piloting a lion back in the 80s was pretty something for us girls. And I came from a country with a female president, so that was the best time ever as a teenager to grow up with that kind of cartoons.
Awesome. Did you have something to add to that, Ella?
No, I think, yeah, you summed it up as pretty well. But yeah, what was I going to say? Something about how it is exactly as you said. It's removing something that is integral to a person's sense of self.
Yeah.
And, you know, you can't erase that.
I'd like to ask you a question that's the reverse of that. It's adding something to a character that's integral.
Yes.
Why is representation of the queer community important to you and to other people? And how does that link to fan fiction?
Well, I mean, representation in this case has the same importance as to any minority, which is that frequently in popular media, you don't see yourself. And seeing yourself in the media is so important because it can be a massive sense of support, or just purely seeing someone that you can identify with is like immeasurable. Even though that they don't really resemble you in any other respects, there is a certain part of their personality traits that you can hook into and that you can identify with, and, you know, can be very beneficial when maybe you're struggling with some things. Sorry, what was the second part of the question?
Well, why is representation of the queer community important, and how does it link to fan fiction?
Oh, of course. Well, yeah, as I said, not particularly. I mean, we're getting better in terms of representation now. In the past couple of years, you've seen a lot more characters in, you know, mainstream film, TV shows, books, etc. But certainly in years past, you know, there wasn't that much. So really, you had to go create your own stories. And fan fiction gives a perfect space for that, because you can take a character that you're interested in from book, film, TV, whatever, and you can expand their world, and you can, you know, take their name, some basic character traits, and really just make it your own. You can, you know, make the story what you want it to be, the character what you want it to be. And yeah, that's really powerful, I believe.
Yeah, I've personally been reading a lot more fiction that involves queer characters. I have to say, my favorite, I don't read a lot of fan fiction, but my favorite two books that come to mind is This Is How It Always Is, and it's about a family, and every one of them has issues. One child is transgendered, and so that child is part of the larger chaotic large family.
Yeah, of course.
Goes through all those issues. And the other one I loved, it's a retelling of Cinderella. My fairy godmother is a drag queen.
Oh,
I love it. It's awesome.
Like,
it's gorgeous, and it talks about coming out and all that, and it's written by a queer guy.
it sounds lovely. Well, yeah, just to add another thing onto that. Another part, apart from, you know, taking something and really making it your own, and putting, I guess, something that is integral to your sense of self onto the character and making a narrative where one doesn't exist. Another part of it is purely accessibility, because particularly for lots of teenagers, queer literature is not queer-themed literature, sorry. It's getting better now. We're seeing more young adult books that have those types of themes and stuff like that. But definitely going further back, that's not really a thing at all, and certainly not something to easily get a hold of. So really, it's an easy place to get queer-themed literature, because you just go on the internet and it's there. So yeah, definitely it's immeasurable in terms of how great it is to have something that accessible at such a time in your life.
Your really enthusiastic. I can hear that coming out in your voice. Cubby, back onto the topic of women and women of colour. You've said that it's important to you to see women and women of colour in fiction and in merchandising, including in costumes for girls for events like Halloween, which we've just had. How are the original stories and toys letting women down?
Right now, we're still waiting for the Allura version of Voltron Legendary Defender, and the toy manufacturer named Playmates Toys, they still haven't released her yet, so we're still waiting. The beautiful thing of this new Voltron version, there is agency now for women of color to actually cosplay and go out there and not get harassed, and you can't wear that cosplay because you're a woman of color. You're not supposed to wear that. No, you can't say that anymore, because we can now. And I have seen New York Comic Con through social media where fantastic young teens wearing amazing cosplays. And there's this one coming up this weekend I'm hope to drop by, called Mad Fest. So that's an anime fest. Hope to see, yeah, kids and teenagers and all ages just come out and just enjoy and celebrate Voltron, if anyone's coming there tomorrow. But yeah, writing fan fiction. I actually wrote it on a time when I had a difficulty with my kid. She had cancer. So the reflection of what I was writing was the same struggle, which I couldn't find in fiction back then. So sometimes when you're so frustrated and you're locked up in the home and you can't go out anywhere and you can't find the narratives that you want in fiction, you write it in fan fiction, and you try to find a solution, find a resolution of your story inside that world, which is already established. And sometimes it's what we call affirmative fan fiction, that you like the core characters, you like how they are, you just have to build the world in there and make stories out of them. And yeah, so I think that's how I started. I'm a pretty late bloomer in terms of writing fan fiction, which is just late. Around 2012. So it's fascinating world, and finding your community is very important inside.
Definitely.
Yeah, because it's quite a big fandom when you're probably in like, say, in Harry Potter. That's what they call a mega fandom. We're not there yet, so but to find your niche group and find better readers and editors to edit your fan fiction before you put it live is fantastic. So I do have that little core group that we have, and most of us are actually parents of children with disabilities, and some of us have disabilities as well. So which is fantastic that we could find ourselves inside a fandom and write fan fiction.
I was going to say that's the thing. Oh, sorry. I was going to say that's the thing. It's it's not just finding yourself in the narratives. It's really finding that community that is part of fandom. It's people from disparate backgrounds and everything, but you find that one thing to unite over, I guess. And yeah, particularly when you need that support and guidance, and it's just a small commonality, but it can be a very powerful commonality.
It is. It's fantastic when you get to find them. Sometimes it's quite difficult because when the fandom becomes, they say, toxic nowadays in social media, because back then it wasn't really, social media wasn't the platform yet. It was forums, but now it's totally a different environment. So yeah, that's also an adjustment for everyone. So finding your safe space, finding your community, and also self-care is important when you write fan fiction. So yeah, because it's quite important to write all those stories that you want to write.
Yeah. And Ella, how do you look after yourself in terms of self-care and we were just talking about representation of women as well as of queer women.
Self-care. Well, I mean, I am in fandoms that are particularly that, you know, if there was any kind of behavior or actions that would be against women, queer women, women of color, etc., any kind of that toxic behavior, I wouldn't be in it. So I'm very lucky to be in fandoms that are not. So it's simple, but my answer is really, you know, I'm very lucky to be in fandoms where there aren't really people like that, I guess. So yes, my self-care is find the places that I want to be, but I know it's not that simple sometimes. And yeah, I've never really had an experience, you know, where you have to sort of carve out a niche of niches within a fandom because of toxic behavior. But I know people who have, and yeah, you know, it's difficult because, as I said, fandom is a place that a lot of people, including myself, find community and solace from the everyday world. And it's really sad, and it's quite upsetting when the place that you go to find that safety and community and, you know, understanding sort of rejects you as well. It's yeah. So no, yeah, never really had to face that, but yeah, that's my thoughts, I guess.
Yeah. And what sorry?
You're lucky then you didn't have to go through that. I had to hide my my identity in the beginning, that I wasn't nobody knew I was a person of color. Because the main narrative of the fandom is Midwestern United States.
Yeah, of course.
So to make them realize there's actually fangirls outside the United States, around the world, is such a new concept during that time that they can't believe I'm emailing them all the way from Australia.
Yeah,
I had
definitely.
to prove that it's a fandom, or you can write fan fiction from different parts of the world. So that's pretty.
Well, yeah, as I said, extremely privileged that I am in fandoms for things that are, you know, the female they are based around female characters, and yeah, they are based around queer females and stuff like that. So, you know, that is what their demo is. But yeah, it'd be so terrible to be in a fandom where like the main demo is, you know, white straight men from America.
Which is true of a lot of stories.
Yeah, absolutely. I guess it's what the fandom landscape traditionally is. Like, you think, like, when you think of I guess most people, or at least in decades past, when they think of fan culture, they think of Star Trek and, you know, men living in their mothers' basements and stuff like that. Like, that's the image that's in the popular knowledge, really, when that's simply not true. So yeah, it's really, I don't know, catering to that idea of what fan culture traditionally is in the past.
One thing I found really interesting, stemming off from that idea of basement dwellers, is back when I was in high school, you know, the geeks were, you know, picked on, bullied, whatever. You know, there's that trope that comes out in stories.
Yeah, absolutely.
And yet I heard that one of the brighter boys from my year was driving a Ferrari by the time he was 21 because he did something really good in computers. And and it's quite common for the real geeks, the IT savvy geeks, to have good careers later on in life. So
absolutely.
Although there may still be this stigma in high school, I think there's a growing awareness that, you know, the jocks will be the ones serving hamburgers and pizza.
Absolutely.
And the geeks will be the one with actual careers.
Yeah, well, it's interesting because just leading off from that, I've noticed in the past couple of years there has been this real like mainstream embrace of, I guess, like language used in fandom. Like, there's been this a lot more, I guess, mainstream conversation or something like that about, you know, using a lot more fandom language in just how we talk about television and film and books and stuff like that. But at the same time, I still feel like there is an othering of fandom despite that, which is, as you know, extremely dispiriting. But yeah, it's interesting that it's seen this like this like, you know, concurrent embrace, but also still pushing away?
It's really fascinating. I mean, this week I have, well, today I met online a professor from France who is studying fans and fandom as part of her academic studies.
Jeez, that's so cool.
And I can't remember her name off the top of my head, but I'll make sure I hook you up later. And this week I found a whole heap of articles, a lot of them written by law students, about Harry Potter and the law. And I found, and I'm kid you not, these are published in journals, but you could say that this is academic fan fiction.
Totally.
I'm reading articles like Harry Potter and the half-crazed bureaucracy, Harry Potter and the scales of justice, Harry Potter and the rule of law. These are all genuine articles.
That's amazing.
Called fan studies. They do have conferences annually, and I watch them live on social media every time they have it. On the other side of the world, which is usually in the UK, it's fantastic that they've got academic studies for that. I miss it. Yeah, it's amazing.
Well, I guess the problem is that because we're, you know, perhaps a country that has considerably less number of people than the United States or something, you know, it's just a matter of finding a supervisor that would be psyched about, you know, supervising that sort of study, which sadly maybe we have less of here, which is sad because it's really an integral part of online culture. And it's, I feel like, as I said, I feel like in the past couple of years there really has been that mainstream embrace. So it's a really interesting topic in how we look at television and how television is talked about. And it's an interesting, I guess, conduit for society and stuff in general, because we are really seeing that increased influence.
Yes, well, having said that about supervisors, I have to say that my own supervisor is fantastic. I'm doing a degree. I'm facing conversion, so I'm really working on a PhD on representation of albinism in science fiction and fantasy.
Wow!
So go Uni Canberra.
That's all.
I just want to say hi as well. Since we're in the area,
I love it so much.
Academic, Rukmini Pandey, she presented this amazing presentation at the last fan studies about racism and fandom, and putting characters who are from people of color, like say in Star Wars. So that's fantastic, and the discussion is already started happening even in academic studies of fandom and fan fiction, which is brilliant. So yeah, we just have to respect, learn to not have to, or accept, or learn to respect and accept that there are other people out there of different backgrounds, and we do write fan fiction, and it's okay to write fan fiction that doesn't need to be pushed out of the spaces because of our color.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. And I mean, speaking of people of color in Star Wars, what do you think of Donnie Cho's role in Rogue One?
Oh,
he was the Asian guy who was the blind Asian guy.
Yes. Oh, sorry, I'm so low. My IQ for Hollywood is so low, but yeah, it was fantastic. We do have a Blu-ray, and yeah, my husband and my kids, they love it, and it's fantastic. It's just that, yeah, sad ending though. Everybody died at the end.
Oh yeah.
But it's brilliant, and we look forward to the Star Wars on December 15. That's another. There's a character of color as well there. I'm keen to check out.
Yeah, and have you been watching Star Trek Discovery? I'm really curious to hear if fan fiction's expanding from that, because there are so many different minorities represented in Star Trek Discovery.
Oh, there you go. I have to admit publicly that I only have one fandom. It's for economic reasons. I have a tendency to be a completist, so I only have Voltron. So yeah, for budgetary reasons, that's the only thing I need to, yeah, fangirl, or else, yeah, we'll go broke. And all of, but yeah, we just love one fandom at one at a time. The my husband, he has his own fandom. My kids have their own fandom. So yeah, mom chooses this one. So yeah,
So
one day
what
you can eventually watch your Star Trek, the new one, in Netflix.
yeah. Yeah, it's on Netflix. I have to watch it for my PhD.
Oh wow!
Oh wow.
Not many people can say that. Oh, and I also have to read Sandman by Neil Gaiman for my PhD.
Wow, what a drag.
Yeah. What about you, Ella? Are there, I mean, apart from the specific things that you've already mentioned,
Okay.
are there things that you really enjoy watching, that you're seeing yourself represented in, or are there stories that you're not seeing yourself represented in enough?
Yeah, okay. Well, I'm a massive, as people can tell from my Twitter feed, I'm a massive fan of the TV show *Halt and Catch Fire*. And I mean, there's very few character traits. The characters in that, those two characters I love in that show so much. And, you know, on a superficial level, not really.
Can you tell us a little bit about the TV show?
Oh, sure. Sorry. It's about the birth and development of the personal computing and internet industries in the 80s and 90s. Yeah, sorry, just dove right in. But yeah, no, I love two characters from that show, and you know, as they're both women who are, because obviously that's quite a male-dominated industry, still is, and both of them are women, you know, struggling to have their voices heard and, you know, create what they want to and really advance up that ladder. And, you know, as many of these things go, you know, on a superficial level, there's not really much in common between me and these characters, except, yeah, I don't know, it's just a certain energy or something. Yeah, so as I said, there's not many character traits really that are, you know, in the show or anything that I directly go, yes, that is something I have in common with them. But I guess it really is just that, you know, general energy of, you know, we have, I guess, the same it's not really views, more like motivations or thoughts or something. It's just a, you know, it's just a sort of intellectual level you're on with them or something. Yeah, I'm just rambling now. But yeah, that's something I really love.
Well, one thing I loved was when my kids were growing up, I went to an interactive museum exhibition, and for the first time I heard about women in maths and science. And I'd always thought that, you know, it was kind of an area that was closed off for me. I was an advanced maths student at high school, but
Yeah.
I thought maths and science was something that was really closed off for me because
Absolutely.
I was a woman, without even really thinking it through, but just in hindsight. And then more recently, I saw Hidden Figures.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, if that was a kick-ass movie. I mean, I understand there are issues with the timeline, you know, it wasn't. It was massaged to make a better movie.
Yeah.
But to me, that wasn't the point. To me, the point was you had women who were pioneers and one woman who got an IBM computer running and programmed it while the IBM guys couldn't get the damn thing running. I mean, this was awesome. You know,
I mean, yeah, sorry, I was going to say that's just the really powerful thing about representation. You know, hopefully people see that film and see themselves somehow in those characters and go, oh, I can go into that industry that, you know, maybe they were passionate about but didn't really feel they had a place in or something like that. Because there is someone like them, you know, who is, you know, a woman or maybe a person of color who was finding their way in that industry. But just to add to that, yeah, women in computers, I think I'd have to go find the statistics again, but I think more women graduated with degrees in computer science in the 80s than they do now. So, yeah,
that doesn't really surprise me. My partner has always worked in the computer industry, and he's more likely to have a woman boss when he's working for the government, which he is at the moment, and he's had a series of woman bosses in the last couple of years, and they tend to be really good too. And he rarely works with women. Like there might be a few, like I think he's mentioned one woman in his workplace at this point, and she's a woman of color and she's really respected. But yeah, just kind of putting that in there. But he hasn't worked with many women.
Yeah.
I just want to echo the podcast earlier from Jess Layden, which she discussed about the history of fan fiction. She gave us a virtual tour and she extended it to us that we are discussing fan fiction today. I just want to show one of the books that has that kind of history. This is my Bible when I started fan fiction, because when you start write fan fiction, there are these jargons that you need to understand, like OTP, what is ship, and like what are you saying, or canon and head canon. What are those things? So if you want to, this is more of writing tips now, but if you're keen to write fan fiction and you love this show or brand, whatever that you like so much, and but you want to know how it all happened, there is a book about fan fiction called Why Fan Fiction is Taking Over the World by Anne Jamieson. It's a signed copy as well.
Cuddle.
Wow.
So this is my Bible. So, but yeah, if you're keen to find out more about the history, it's there. Star Trek, the zines, how it all started. That's one. Sorry, this is my academic side. I need research.
Oh, this is excellent. We need this.
This is from a Canadian writer. Her name is Sam Eggs. So but it's printed in the United States. Fangirl's Guide to the Galaxy. They even have a manifesto at the back about the Fangirl manifesto.
Yay!
If you want to be a fangirl, you don't know how to start it, grab one of these. Okay, Fangirl Life. This is from the United States as well. This is one brilliant book when you're really down and you need virtual up, because of the ship wars happening and all these toxic things in social media. 2017 is such a difficult year. Yep. Fangirl Life, grab it.
Somebody in my Twitter feed said that for Halloween, they had the perfect Halloween costume, put on a garbage bag and go as 2017.
There you go.
Oh, it's a great joke. I love it.
So I'm looking forward to an Australian edition. I think a few academics out there, Celia, Dr. Celia, if you're watching, yeah, they're coming up with an academic book about fandom and fan studies. So yeah.
Celia who?
Celia, I follow her on Twitter as well. I have to find out her Twitter name though. I forgot. Dr. Celia May. I think it's in Celia Lam, I think. In social media. I have to find out. I'll tweet it later if you like. There's so many there are so many Twitter followers right now. So
well, that's great.
Yep.
So Ella, do you have any books to recommend on the subject or websites or something?
No, I have to admit that I haven't done any book reading intense type of thing on this stuff. It's really just, from my lived experience, I guess you could say, of my many years on Tumblr and stuff like that. So I guess Tumblr and other websites, like that are really centers of fandom for, and not just one, many, that is the fandom gathering place. I guess they are my encyclopedias of this, that's where you learn everything.
Yeah. Do you have a favorite Tumblr feed or something like that?
No, not particularly, because these days it's just because of, because when I first got into fandom, obviously I was a teenager, and as you get older, there's a lot more commitments in life. So, I don't have as much time to spend on that as much as I once did. So, no, not really these days.
Mm. And what about you, Cubby? Do you have a favorite Tumblr or website or place to go for fan fiction?
Oh, would you believe I don't have Tumblr. I don't go to Tumblr. I'm so terrified of Tumblr right now. It's very, they did say, it's quite a toxic place to be in right now for our specific fandom. But I do have Instagram. We used to have a forum, but that's gone now. So it's usually just Twitter. We've got a separate Twitter account just for the fandom, just for the specific ship as well. Jess mentioned something about debunking a myth earlier about fan fiction. It's bad and everything. Just want you to know, for those who are of highbrow, literary, before we upload a story, most of us have it go through editors as well. We have beta readers, a whole bunch behind a story. We plot as well. Some of us, we even do, some are pantsers, don't even finish the stories, but most of us do have this, we write down our storylines before we upload them, clean them up. So so I just want to say to Jess earlier that thank you for debunking the myth, and thank you to actually Digital Writers Festival having this discussion online in Australia. It is happening, that we also are writing fan fiction.
That assertion that it was somehow bad always made me laugh, because as I said in the blog post that accompanies this, I have certainly read fanfic that's actually better than the actual show. It's just the narrative beats are so much better written. The character motivations are so much more just well thought out and connected to the essence of them. And I feel like it comes from that really keen attention to detail and keen attention to the characters, that you have this increased understanding that sometimes you probably your product, what you end up coming up with, is actually better than the showrunners. And I in the blog post I gave one particular example of that, where people in the Orphan Black fandom wrote a speculative season 4, and it was better than the actual season 4. It was fantastic. Yeah, it was incredible. So they wrote a whole series worth of teleplays, set out exactly like a teleplay for the series, like a typical episode would look. And it was perfect.
Great.
Yeah.
Ellie, you've mentioned that you actually like stories that don't have romances, so you have relationships that aren't. Well, in our Twitter discussion the other time, have I said something wrong, or
no,
do you like? So would you like to expand on that?
I mean, I honestly can't remember the context I said that in. I'm sorry. But yeah, I mean, I guess it's just part of, what the story calls for, what the narrative calls for, what the characters' journeys are in that story. Sometimes that might not require romance. It might just be about them finding themselves, and that doesn't have to necessarily be through a romantic attachment. Mm-hmm. It can be through friendship or other kinds of relationships. So yeah, no, I believe with any other kinds of stories, it really is just about doing what is best for the character and what you want to achieve with them in that story. And how you want to communicate their journey, whatever journey you want to take them on, I guess.
I have to say that some of the stories that I've been really enjoying lately feature really good, because I'm straight, they feature really good opposite sex relationships that don't involve romance. And yet at the same time, on Star Trek Discovery, whenever these two gay guys interact with each other, I'm just like, oh, they're so cute. So it's contradictory, I suppose, as much as anything. It's just
absolutely.
the difference and the character, the personality, and doing something a bit different.
Yeah, totally, definitely. Yeah, having that. Well, I feel like, you know, a lot of the time the default is to make two characters fall in love. But as I said, you know, it's what's the best to service your needs in your story. Yeah.
Yep. If you can't find it on fiction, write it down in fan fiction, I suppose.
Exactly.
Yep, especially for the new generation right now. The ones who are watching Voltron, Legendary Defender, are the ones going through their teenage years. And it's fantastic. They could express whatever they want on using fan fiction. And in other countries, who prefer zines actually or manga, they draw it on manga. And the way the digital, because we are in a digital festival, so the way the digital consumption or processing and creation is so fast.
Yeah.
It's remarkable. Next thing you know, they're already drawing these amazing zines, but then they're in Japanese or in Korean, so I have to ask friends to translate them for me. But the level of artistry of these amazing fans who are so they're so used to technology. It's like second into them. They could just write out, write or draw straight away. So it's brilliant how much fan fiction and fan art is out there right now because of the digital spaces that it gives us a brilliant platform.
Yes, you were talking about they actually make these zines and even animations, and they're using technology to do this.
Yes, I know, right? So I can't even comprehend how fast or how they discover these things, but because I come from a different generation, so these young teenagers were born with the internet all their lives, so it's so easy for them. So I am such in awe when I see all these fan art already uploaded on social media. It's absolutely brilliant. So to have these teenagers express themselves that way, which we didn't have during our generation, is such an amazing feat. So I just want to say out there that write whatever you want. It doesn't matter. It's your story. We respect your story. If you feel that you wanted to write it this way, it's fine. No one, don't make you feel that, hey, I can't write this because it's queer or what. No, don't let other people stop you. Just write it. Okay, that's important. That's what I tell my kids as well, because I've got tweens coming up. So write whatever you want. This is a new age. Enjoy.
Yes.
Enjoy the platform.
Did you know that the guys who made the movie Iron Sky, before they made the movie, they were actually into making fan videos. So they had this whole series. Yep. And this was over a long period of time, so you could see the technology develop. I'm pretty sure the early ones were like line drawings. Like,
oh my God.
Yeah. And then the later ones, they did, it was Star Trek and Babylon 5 Go to War, except I can't remember what it's called off the top of my head, but it was a spoof, so they weren't using the names, but it was clearly Star Trek and Babylon 5, and it was really funny, and the special effects were better than some special effects that you see in professional productions, and this was a fan production. And then because they were so good, they ended up getting government funding and funding from a few different sources to make the movie Iron Sky.
Oh, there you go. I need to watch that. I need to I'll Google that after this and check it out. There you go.
Yeah. Oh, look, it was really good. I've got the original fan movies on DVD, but unfortunately all that stuff's in storage because I'm living in a tiny flat here, which is another reason for absolutely loving everything that's online.
Yes.
And you can probably
Let's
find
face
those things online too.
Yes.
Do you have questions online or?
Pardon?
Do we have any questions from online or anything? No, I don't think so. Yeah,
I suppose I have one more question. We were talking earlier about toys and not having representation, and we've moved through how a lot of fans are actually really tech savvy, and they're making manga and they're making web novels and web comics and stuff like that.
Yes.
How about the possibility of actually 3D printing your own girl toys and things like that? I mean, do we see some of this stuff out there?
Yeah, it's actually happening. Some of they actually sell them now. In Voltron Legendary Defender, I've got one here. It's no, this is a toy, but actually there are people out there. Makoto Kamui, I think his name is. There are a couple of fans who sell their 3D printed Bayards. So yeah, that's one of the devices in the Paladins use. Or yeah, you can buy them online now, and even the cosplay costumes as RTW, you can buy them on Etsy if you want. And there are I'm wearing an Allura t-shirt right now, so that's one I got from Redbubble. So yeah, the search is just everywhere nowadays compared to back then. So I don't know how it's just thing. But yeah, everything's accessible thanks to social media, and yeah, you've got this whole network community linking you to all these fan merch. And apart from fan fiction, of course, but yeah, so there's the extension of the entire community into other things, and yeah, in phone charms and stickers and stationery, it just goes on and on. How creative the fans are nowadays.
I love living in the future.
It's the best.
Yeah. Now, as part of the Digital Writers Festival, there's been an online story that a whole heap of people have contributed to. The idea is that someone started it off and people have been adding a line at a time, and it's actually called A Line at a Time. So I'm going to read the first few sentences from it, and then you can go to the Digital Writers Festival Facebook page and actually add to the story. It's growing all the time.
There you go.
Here we go. Yes, this is about fans being a little bit tech savvy. Here's the story. In her entire life, she had never run as fast as she did now. This is it. I can't believe this is it. I'm going to die in an aquarium, she thought. She sprinted towards the cafe in the otter exhibit and frantically searched for something to defend herself. She snatched the tongs from behind the counter and crouched behind the cash register, waiting for the zombie horde.
Oh no.
So you can all go to the Facebook page and join in.
I think there's one line that was apparently the winning line that is and it says, and it's from Warwick Holt, and yeah, as I said, you can go and add to that story, but the winning line, okay, from Warwick is, as the zombie president took these excruciatingly slow steps towards her, a dim, distant recognition finally coalesced in her mind. Uncle Phil.
What a way to end the festival. Something fun and quirky and just something different, and giving us this platform for fan fiction in a Digital Writers Festival.
Well, I guess fanfic really, well, as we can see from that, it's extremely collaborative, having that story being built together, and fanfic enables us to write whatever we want through whatever we want, and it really is a conversation. I guess fandom is a conversation. It's this collaboration, and you're really creating and expanding the worlds that you have been given together.
Yeah, and no one can take that away from you. If it doesn't become canon, it's fine. It's your story. It's how it is. You just have to, you love your story so much, just hold on to it. Yeah, and it's out in the world, and you could just upload it. Yeah, and
Yeah.
anyone can read it. Anyone in the world.
Yes. And if
It's
you
fair.
think about it, it's just as respectable as people like, for example, Kelly Armstrong was paid to write in Joss Whedon's Buffy universe sandbox. So, you know, I mean, that was a paid job, and she's recognized as an author. But really, what's the difference between Kelly Armstrong writing in that universe and somebody else who's joining in from home?
Yeah. Well, I guess the answer with that one would be that, you know, it's getting paid.
Yes, and does I mean, we tend to focus on the dollar.
Absolutely.
Tim Dixon from the Jane Austen Argument, a great little band down in Melbourne, or duo, I should say. When I interviewed him, he talked about how he went to art school and everybody told him that 99% of them would fail. And he said that what the art school didn't take into account was different definitions of success. So
Totally.
what is your definition of success? I mean, does it have to be about getting the big money? Does it have to be, you know, because that's just setting yourself up for failure. I mean, it's a bonus if you can get there. Brandon Sanderson, you know, he's a really well-known author. He had written several novels and he got rejected on every single one. And he told me that he had decided that he was going to continue writing, even if he got to the point where he had written over 70 novels and never got published. He was going to continue to writing because he was passionate about writing and telling stories. And now look at him. He writes full-time, he gets paid for it, and he finished off Robert Jordan's series because Robert Jordan died of cancer. So, you know, I mean, it works for some people that they get the career, but the really key thing, I think, is his definition of success wasn't about getting paid for it. It was about writing.
It's having that personal fulfillment.
Yes, yes. And I think that we need to really really look at that. I mean, I've gone through different phases in my life. I keep getting doors closed on me because I'm vision impaired, and people think that that means that I don't have anything productive to offer in the employment marketplace. My definition of success, I'm doing a PhD at the University of Canberra, and okay, I would like a career to come from this, but the fact is that if I do this PhD, then it contributes to change, it contributes to the community, it gives back to society. So that in itself is a definition of success. And anything else is a bonus. And I see that as being a lot like Brandon Sanderson and being a lot like other people. So I saying all of this to encourage people to embrace their creativity and to look, you know, to stop looking at the dollar sign as a definition of success. Look at other things as a definition of success. Do you guys have anything to add to that? Sorry, that I'm getting off my soapbox now.
No, totally beautiful. It's, you know, it's finding a way to express your voice. And yeah, that is definitely that. This is a space that, you know, you do just that.
Yep. And because we're in a digital writers festival, just enjoy, continue writing. Just keep on writing. That's it. No, don't stop. I love the craft of writing. When I was in Fanfiction, that I had to go to events and how to improve your writing. I eventually crossed over to nonfiction now because of that desire to improve the craft of writing in fan fiction. I ended up now publishing stuff in nonfiction. So there you go. So you could use your passion to the other side in other things as well. That you know you've got this passion for writing, it can go everywhere, anywhere, in poetry, in writing zines or fan fiction still, if you want to continue, or you can even go to, cross over to more other areas of writing.
Yes, yeah. So we need to start wrapping up. Is there anything else that you'd like to say to either add to the discussion or say to our viewers before we go? And you might want to give them your Twitter handles so that the conversation can continue online but off video.
Yeah, sure. Well, I think we've pretty much covered it and gone into, the how you can create your own worlds and find yourself in fan fiction. So if you want to pick up the conversation with me, my Twitter is linked on the Digital Writers Fest Twitter feed. So you'll be able to find it there.
Mine too. It's on. I'm on Cubbyberry on Twitter. Yep. I'm not on Facebook. Was one of or on Tumblr, but I'm a massive Twitterer since 2009. So I'm just there, hanging out. And you are. What's your other, Nalini? Your other brilliant call handle in Twitter?
Dark Matter Zine. So think of dark matter as in black holes, dark matter, zine, Z-I-N-E, as in magazine.
Yeah. There you go. That's a brilliant handle name in social media, dark matter.
Thank you. Yeah, well, anyway, so thank you all very much for joining us, and I hope you join us and have a chat on Twitter. I understand that more people actually watch this video after the live recording, so we'll be hanging out there, getting on and off, and while we're living our lives, and we'd love to continue this conversation. So thank you very much for joining us, and have a good one.
Thanks, everybody.
Happy Friday. Happy weekend.
Yeah.